וברכה. שלום וברכה. B'Shem Hashem na'aseh v'na'atzliach, Shiur Torah, Bruchim Habayim. We're back here on our Sunday night Torah Foundation series based on the Chovot Levavot. Tonight's shiur is going to be for the Refuah Shlema for Rabbi Ephraim ben Shulamit, Rabbanit Sarah bat Anat, Rabbanit Levana bat Sarah, Sarah bat Levana, Avi Mori David ben Esriya, Imi Morati Doris bat Jora, and all of Am Yisrael and all the righteous Noahides that continue to support the organization, continue to donate their time, their efforts. And anyone that wants to do so as well could go on bhtorah.org or be'ezrathashem.org. And of course, as a reminder for everybody to get to the Kiruv store so you can get some of the free stuff that we have over there to distribute in your community. Rabotai Kareem, we're going to start off with a story before going into the Chovot Levavot, just to give you guys a perspective of how many merits you can get yourself, and how much of a life change you can get yourself by doing Kiruv, specifically with this Tikkun HaBrit magnet that I keep harping on, that people think is great, is wonderful, but not everybody took it on. Baruch Hashem, I got good news this Motzei Shabbat, where one of our dear students in Bangkok showed us a picture that he has it on his truck. And of course, we have people in Texas, we have people in New York, we have people in Florida, people all over the place are putting this magnet for Tikkun HaBrit film on their cars. But still, the fact that I still have some in stock means that not everybody has gotten them. Now, some people think, oh, it's not comfortable, it's not this, it's not that. Let me explain to you what Rav Meir Mazuz, alav Shalom, said about such a thing in a sefer called Midei Shabbat. These were the shiurim that Rav Meir Mazuz, alav Shalom, used to give on Motzei Shabbat and on Shabbat. And in one of the pages, in page 264 and 265, he tells a story. He tells a story of a guy that used to have a printing factory where he, aside from his job, he would also print out stickers. What are these stickers? Kiruv stickers. Keep Shabbat, Shabbat is great, all types of stickers that are good for Kiruv. That's it. And he would put it and he would give it out for free. Now, that may not seem like such a big deal to you or to your friend next to you, but let me tell you what kind of a big deal it ended up happening. One day, his wife told him, honey, can you do me a favor, and can you take our daughter to the kindergarten, preschool? They had a baby, and of course they need somebody to take care of the baby while the parents work. And he said, sure, no problem. But what can you do? That the guy was so wrapped up into his work and busy day that he forgot the kid in the car. This has happened. This is unfortunately happening. And Rav Mazuz says that in those days, and certainly today, there was a certain electronic tool that they were selling in Germany that would tell the parents if their kids were left in the car. And certainly it should become an obligation, a legal obligation worldwide for people to have it, needless to say, in the Jewish community. But this father forgot his daughter in the car. 5 hours passed, and it was time to pick up the kid from school. So he walked to the school. He walked to the school and he said, okay, I want here to pick up my daughter. And the teacher said, I'm sorry, sir, but your wife didn't drop her off today. He said, well, how could that be? And then he realized, oi, I forgot my daughter in the car. He starts running and he realizes that there's no way that this kid is alive. Not only did he leave this baby in the car, for 5 hours, the heat was unbearable. And he's running to the car, crying hysterical, getting closer and closer and looking to see anything. Just not a dead kid. He gets to the car, he opens the car and he sees that the baby is red, but alive. Immediately he takes it to the hospital and they start taking care of the kid. While he's waiting, he remembers his dream from last night. You know, you wake up many times. I don't know about you guys, but I rarely ever remember my dreams. I know some people that their dreams are so amazing and they remember every detail. If I was them, I'd just simply sleep all the time. But some people don't remember their dreams. The Gemara says that if you don't have a dream for 40 days, it could be a problem, but it's usually not because you don't have a dream, it's because you forgot him. In this case, the guy forgot the dream, but now he remembered it. And he was watching Rabbi Yosef at the Bet Din of heaven, pleading with the Bet Din. And the Bet Din says to him, this man's daughter will die tomorrow. And Rabbi Vadia says to them, please, don't take away his daughter. He's a kiruv. He does kiruv. And the Bet Din says to Rabbi Vadia, what kiruv does he do? Rabbi said, well, kiruv? He gives out stickers. He gives them out everywhere. People have these stickers. And he starts naming the stickers. You should keep Shabbat. You should do TeShuva. These stickers are doing kiruv. Why would you take his daughter when he does such important kiruv in the world? And Rabbi Vadia is pleading with them. For what merit? Not for his learning Torah, not for his tzedakah, not for anything else, but what? For the kiruv that he's doing. And the Bet Din paskins, she will live. And he realizes that's exactly what happened. Rabotai Karim, we have gone through an enormous amount of money to make the film Tikkun HaBrit, to make all of the other films, and to publicize them in as many places as possible. Right now is the time of SHOVAVIM, and I'm very, very happy that some of you are taking the initiative to do tshuva, either by doing tikkunim with us and donating on the website, some more, some less, but also because some of you are taking the initiative to do kiruv during this time, specifically with this issue, by taking this magnet and putting it on your car, putting it in your store, taking the cards, putting it in different stores, different supermarkets, different places, so other people can finally do tshuva for this horrible sin, because unfortunately, if they don't watch our film, where are they going to learn the truth about the horrible things that they're doing to their neshama? A magnet saved a life, a sticker saved a life. Needless to say, a magnet could save lives. Tonight, Rabotai, we're going to go into the next segment of the Chovot HaLevavot, where Rabbeinu Bechaye gives us some more details of how to apply this inspection of the heart, these duties of the heart to real life. After we've learned from him that the obligation is based on the written Torah, the oral Torah, and pure logic, Jewish logic nonetheless, he now tells us that the obligation is much more numerous than people can imagine. But in order to get the point across, we'll discuss some extraordinary stories of how the duties of the heart actually got applied in real life situations, similar to the one I just told you, in recent as well as in past history, to not only impact people's life, but also save lives. The Chovot HaLevavot tells us that after he's reviewed this, based on the written Torah, based on the oral Torah, based on logic, he still questioned himself, how come there's no book that is detailing all of this? His humility continues. Unlike the cowboys of today that think that they could renew the Torah with their chidushim that have no connection to the Torah, only to their warped logic. Here you have one of the Rishonim, one of the great sages in our history, from nearly 1,000 years ago, questioning how numerous is this obligation. And he says as follows: Then I said, perhaps this class of duties does not break up into many different categories of obligations, and that's why the sages did not write a separate book on a subject. He says, perhaps maybe there's only a couple of obligations, and that's why there's no need to write a whole book. But when I checked their number and variety, I found so many different kinds of obligations that I thought what David HaMelech said in Psalm 119, verse 96, but your commandment is exceedingly broad. In so many words, David HaMelech is saying, he has seen all things have a limit, but Hashem's commandment have no limit. Let's look into the words of David HaMelech a little further to see what David HaMelech was telling us here. In the book of Psalms, chapter 119, verse 96, David HaMelech cries out to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, after he says to Hashem, I will never forget your mitzvot, and through them you've preserved me. He tells us why they preserved him. To every goal I have seen an end, but your commandments are exceedingly broad. In so many words, the Midrash tells us, in Midrash Rabbah, section 10, that everything in the creation has a limit. Even the vastness of the heaven and of the earth. The Torah in the book of Genesis, chapter 2, verse 1, tells us that the heaven and the earth were finished, meaning that they have a limit. They're big, they're huge, but there's a limit. In the Gemara in Masechet Chagigah, page 12a, the Gemara says that the reason why HaKadosh Baruch Hu is also named El Shaddai is because he is the El, he is the God that said Dai, that said enough. What did he say enough to? When he created the heavens started expanding more and more and more until he roared at the heavens and said, Dai, enough. And they stopped expanding. This is why fear of Hashem is also called fear of heaven, because the first thing to fear Hashem was the heavens. Yirat Shamayim. In the book of Job, in chapter 11, verse 9, Job says, its measure, it's longer than the earth and broader than the sea, when it's referencing the Torah. Meaning that the Torah is much bigger than the earth, is much bigger and wider than the heavens. In the Sefer Milchamot Hashem, written about 700 years ago by the Ramban, he explains that Torah study is different than secular studies, such as mathematics and science, because these subjects analyze a finite world, and they lead to specific finite answers. But the Torah is infinite, and therefore its study is beyond anything you can possibly imagine, where there is no end to the amount of depth that the Torah can get to. Although there are absolute rules of the Torah, principles of how to extrapolate things from verses, how to understand certain things. But the amount of knowledge that could come out of the Torah is literally infinite. That's why they say that the Torah has 70 facets. Shivim panim la Torah. It's not that there's literally 70 limited commentaries on something, but rather it's unlimited. As a side note, there was a lawyer that recently publicized that he's a Shomer Shabbat Jew, and he gives, I guess, apparently guidance to people that want to learn to become lawyers. And he says to all of these law students that want to become lawyers and do well on the LSAT, they should start learning Talmud. They should start learning Gemara. Why? Because the level of learning in the Talmud is very different than anything else you will learn in law school or anything else. It will teach you how to analyze, how to extrapolate things, how to understand things from different directions. And he says this will make you excel in the legal field. And he saw this with his own eyes when he actually took his LSAT, which he took on a weekday, even though it's known that in those days the main day of the week to take the test was on Saturday. But since he's a Shomer Shabbat, Baruch Hashem, he overcame that test and took the test during the week, and he saw that the room was full of religious bachurim that wanted to become lawyers. And they did exceptionally better than everybody else. Why? Because they all learned Gemara. They all learned Talmud. And their thinking was very different than your typical person. If anybody wants to go into the world of law, I would always recommend a person to avoid criminal law, because then you'll have to defend actual criminals, which is against the Torah. You could go into business law, real estate law, things of that, copyright law, things of that nature. But needless to say, when a person looks at the laws of the Torah, even though there are specific laws, specific principles, the amount of new insights that are inside those laws, inside those principles, by using the laws in the Torah, are infinite. And that's why the Radak says not only is the total body of wisdom of the Torah endless, but each individual commandment of the Torah is infinitely broad in scope, where the actual details, ramifications, and legal applications of any mitzvah are countless. How do we see this in actual life? Through Chovot HaLevavot. We will see how these obligations of the heart are literally so numerous, there is no number for them. And that's what the Chovot HaLevavot tells us next. Based on what David HaMelech says, that I've seen all things have a limit, but your commandments are exceedingly broad, he must have had the duties of the heart in mind, says the Chovot HaLevavot. For the duties of the limbs are limited in number, fewer than 613. But the duties of the heart are so many, their branches and offshoots are innumerable. That's why they're not listed one by one, because you could literally apply them to every single situation in your life. And just like Rabbeinu Bechaya told us in last week's shiur, that so long as you're serving the master, you're obligated to inspect your heart. It's not something that is specified to time or specified to date, but rather it's at all times. And one of the things that makes a person become tireless and fatigued and become somebody that really does not know right or left, which direction to go, is when they try to understand Hashem. Don't try to understand Hashem. Just do your job. Certainly you have to believe in Hashem, you have to fear Hashem, you have to love Hashem, or at the very least, try to get yourself and elevate yourself to that point. more and more each day. But to understand Hashem's ways is impossible in the human mind. As the Rambam said, if we would understand Him, we would be Him. And that's in essence what our own dear Rabbi Ephraim Kachlon taught us, that the duties of the heart is not just called that, but it also depends on that. It depends on the heart. It depends on your emotional connection to Hashem. Because if you're an unemotional person when it comes to Hashem, then serving Hashem becomes impossible. Because whatever you're going to do will simply become robotic. You'll just do it because you grew up in a certain neighborhood, you grew up in a certain community, you grew up doing certain things, no different than people from Africa do whatever they do over there, and people in Russia do what they do over there, and people in China and Japan do what they do over there. You'll become a Jew that does whatever he does, not because you have any connection to it, but rather because that's what they do. It becomes customary. It becomes robotic. It becomes meaningless and very easy to abandon. But when you become emotional about Hashem, when you become emotional about His Torah, it makes it easier to do the mitzvot. It also makes it something that has much deeper meaning to you. So when you see somebody is violating Shabbat, it hurts your heart. When you see somebody that's walking around immodest, it bothers you. Not because you view them as wicked people and you hate them or anything like that, but rather because you realize that they are lacking something so significant, but don't realize it. It's like someone walking around with stage 4 cancer, but still going to work every day. Why? If you knew that you're going to die in the next several months, you wouldn't be going to work. You would enjoy your life or whatever you have left of it. When a person does not keep Torah and mitzvot, does not learn Torah, they have missing the critical purpose of their life. But in all of these cases, they don't realize what they're missing. And as the Rambam says, a person can get to a point of spiritual illness that is no different than physical illness, where a person that's physically ill makes himself think, based on his inability to taste properly, makes himself think that things that are bad for him are good and things that are good for him are bad. Same concept when it comes to spiritual illness. A person that's spiritually distant from Hashem can think that protecting their brit, being modest, keeping Shabbat, eating kosher, being honest in business, all of the different things that the Torah teaches us are bad, are fanatic, are too much, are extreme. But him doing whatever he wants, that's what's good. The closer you are to HaKadosh Baruch Hu with your emotions, the more this is something that's going to be unbearable to you. Not because of hate, not because of any type of malice, but rather because you're seeing somebody spiritually sick and does not even realize the cure is available. Now, one of the things that the Yetzer Hara focus most of his attention on is to make you forget about Hashem. In such a way that he'll keep you busy. He'll keep you so busy that you'll think that no one's watching. In last week's parasha, we saw that the Egyptians knew that the plague of hail was coming. They got notice. And the Torah says in chapter 9, verse number 20, "Ayre dvar Adonai me'avdei Paro, enis et avadav ve'et mikneu el habatim, ve'asher lo sam libo el dvar Adonai, ve'ya'azov et avadav ve'et mikneu basadeh." Translation: Whoever among the servants of Paro feared the word of Hashem, chased his servants and his livestock to the houses. And whoever did not take word of Hashem to heart, he left his servants and his livestock in the field. Meaning, here we see that those that feared Hashem, knew the plague is coming, could hurt them, they went inside. But those that did not are not called those that did not fear Hashem. Rather, they're called those that did not take the word of Hashem to heart. How so? People get so consumed with their materialism, with their ego, with all types of other things that the Yetzer Hara influences them to do, that they forget that Hashem is watching. Just like the prophet Isaiah in chapter 4, verse number 12 says, there are harp and lyre, and drum and flute, and wine at their drinking parties, but they would not contemplate the deed of Hashem, and would not look at the work of his hands. Why do you think Hashem keeps sending you invitations to go to parties that you should never go to? Another bar mitzvah, another wedding with mixed dancing, another nightclub, another office party. Why do you think you keep getting the invitations? You said no 50 times before. Why does the Yetzer Hara keep sending you more people? Because he's hoping that one day you will fall. Because the moment you fall and you go to one of these parties, you go to one of these events, you go to one of these meetings, at that moment you already put Hashem aside. You already put Hashem aside, you already started ignoring Hashem. And that little step can easily lead to you forgetting Hashem is even watching. When you do things that are against the Torah, whether it's adultery, or it's other immorality, or improper business, all types of things. That's what the Yetzer Hara wants. He's not going to tell you to stop doing the things that you're strong at. If you, let's say you lay tefillin every day, he's not going to tell you don't lay tefillin. Why? Because he knows that this is part of your daily regiment. He knows you keep Shabbat. He's not going to tell you don't keep Shabbat. What is he going to do? He's going to wait for you in the corner. He's going to wait for you in the corner to see when your heart is not there. When your heart is not thinking for you. And he's going to bring you to places so you can start forgetting about Hashem. Even if it's for a moment, he can get you for a lifetime. The Chovot HaLe'avot is telling us that the application of these duties of the heart is so numerous, they're innumerable, if you only know how to apply them to every aspect of your life. One of the ways that people get tested on without realizing is they get tested on the small stuff. Most people expect that their tests from heaven are going to be big. Especially people that are Baalei Tshuva, new, on fire. They want to already build a house of Torah. They want to build a family. They want everything. And they don't realize that what they've passed so far, some of these big tests, are not going to be the most difficult ones. The difficult ones usually are the small ones. Last week, a story was publicized of a unfortunate drowning. There was a Bachur that went to swim in the river over there in Modi'in and drowned. Now, somebody tried to save him, another Bachur named Shimi Rosenblatt, and he himself nearly drowned. And last minute, miracle that he was saved. Released from the deadly waters. What happened? His father, Rav Benjamin Rosenblatt, says that as his way each Erev Shabbat, each Friday, is to go to the store near the mikveh to get a few things for Shabbat. When he went to the store, that Friday, there was a avrech that perhaps didn't pay attention and ran into a box of candy that was open and ran into it. It fell all over the floor, made a big boom sound. And of course, the store owner said, "Oh, what happened?" The avrech was so shocked and embarrassed, he didn't know what to say. Right away, Rav Rosenblatt ran over there and said, "I did it. I'm at fault. I'll pick it up and I'll pay for all of it." Store owner said, "Oh, okay, no problem." He said, "Yeah, even if you're 50 years old, these things happened. But don't worry, I'll pay for it." "Sure, no problem, Rabbi." He picked up the candy, put it away, paid for it. When he left the store, the avrech got his senses back and came up to the rabbi and said, "Thank you so much for saving me the embarrassment. Let me pay you for it." Rosenblatt says, "What? No, absolutely not. I did it and I paid for it already." The avrech smiled at the rabbi, thanked him dearly, and left. Later that night, Rav Rosenblatt says he has a dream. And in the dream, he's drowning. He's underwater. He cannot find a place or something to grab on. He cannot free himself. And then he wakes up. A few days later, that Tuesday, his son was in that situation, drowning right after his friend drowned, but miraculously released from the water as if somebody pushed him up. And Rav Rosenblatt says, "I contribute this miracle to the small act that I did." Where if the Torah tells us that Amalbin pnei chavero barabim en lo chelek leolam haba, that someone that embarrasses a person in public has no share of the world to come, then needless to say, if someone saves somebody from embarrassment, gets another chance at life. So something small, or appearing small, in the eyes of people, ended up saving his son's life. But this would not be possible if he did not have duties of the heart, inspection of the heart at all times, realizing that the young man was about to be embarrassed for an accident, because that's just the way it is. Did not know how to react, did not know how to speak, because of how embarrassed he was. And right now there's so much hatred against the world of Torah in Israel that literally some Bachurim are scared to move. They're arresting them, they're beating them up. Everyone is looking to accuse them for something. And had this Rabbi Rosenblatt not thought about his fellow Jews' embarrassment as an instinct, he not only would have missed the opportunity to save his fellow Jew from embarrassment, he would have ended up, chas v'shalom, losing his son. Last week, there was a very important, very righteous Rav that passed away, who many secular Jews benefit from but do not even realize who he is. His name is Rav Uri Loplyansky. He is the founder of the humanitarian organization Yad Sarah, who has done extraordinary chesed for Am Yisrael for the last 50 years, saving the government of Israel $1.5 billion per year due to their humanitarian work. Unbelievable chesed, unbelievable. 7,000 volunteers helping Am Yisrael in what really the government is supposed to do. A lot of secular Jews that try to accuse the religious world, the Haredi world, of eating for free and not contributing don't realize that the most extraordinary, the most biggest resources that help the country come from the Haredi non-profit organizations. October 7th, who do you think cleaned that up? All of the bodies, all of the death, all the disaster that happened. Was the Haredim. Was the Haredim. Whether it's Hatzalah, or it's Yad Sarah, or many others we've mentioned in the past. But unfortunately, most people don't realize that it's the religious Jews that are behind it. In fact, one of the things I learned from our own dear Rav Ze'ev is that his dear father is the one that founded the first blood bank of Israel. Many years ago, when women were dying as pretty much on a regular basis because of the things that happen with having babies, and a lot of times there was complications. His father, the tzaddik, founded a blood bank, and that blood bank is still to this day the main blood bank of Israel. Now, if you ask the average secular, lefty, liberal Jew, who runs the blood bank? Who runs the humanitarian organizations? Who's behind all of this? They'll think it's one of their lefty, liberal friends. They don't realize that the Haredi world contributes to the country much more than anybody else, more than the secular Jews, more than anyone else. But, just like the Torah tells us, the righteous people do much and say little. The wicked people do little and say much. That's in the Mishnah in Masechet Avot. Rav Lopiansky, before he founded the Yad Sarah, he was a Kiruv rabbi, constantly involving himself with helping Jews do tshuva in any way that he possibly can. But this would not be possible if he did not inspect his heart at all times. When he was a bachur, young man, there was a huge immigration of Georgian Jews into Israel, escaping the communism, escaping the hatred, and came to Israel. And the government stuck them all in different apartment buildings in Beersheba. Rav Lopiansky came over there and tried to convince them to send their kids to religious schools. But it was like speaking to a wall. It's a language barrier. They didn't speak Hebrew. He didn't speak Georgian. He didn't speak their language. And there were no results. This tzaddik took upon himself to go and learn their language. Took courses, took books, and spent months learning how to speak their language. He came back and started speaking to them in their language. All of a sudden, they not only heard his words, but they saw his heart. Hundreds and hundreds of young people ended up signing up to yeshivot. After that, he told them, why don't you guys have any Batei Knesset here, any shuls in the community? Let's build. They said, where? He said, well, the government gave you these apartment buildings. Each one of them has a lobby. Let's close off the lobbies and make it into a Batei Knesset. Okay, Rabbi. He brought a couple of Ashkenazi Jews, Talmidim of his, or Bachurim that he was friends with, and they all started working. The government hated him. The government wanted these Georgian Jews to abandon the Torah, to remain communists, to be like them. So they tried arresting Rav Lopliansky several times. He would run away and then come back. Run away and come back. He wasn't giving up on his fellow Jews. But now they started building. The police showed up ready to enforce. Why? It's illegal. What are you doing? Now these new immigrants, they were scared of the police. They're new in the country. They don't know the rules. The police show up and they say, listen, what are you doing? We'll arrest all of you. Rav Lopiansky spoke to the Georgian Jews in their language and says to them, Stalin couldn't take you down. Stalin could not remove you from your religion. You're going to let these police officers do that? Withhold you from Hashem? All of a sudden, these Georgian Jews got their kedusha into their hearts. Each one grabbed an axe, grabbed a hammer, grabbed whatever tool was in their hand. They started chasing the police. The police ran away and never came back. They built over 20 Batei Knesset in the community. Legal, not legal, let us be Jews. Let us be Jews. Later on, this Rav Lopiansky built Yad Sarah, had an extraordinary impact, initially obviously collecting tzedakah, little by little from people, but eventually big donors showed up and the impact grew drastically. So much so that he was recognized and appreciated by all. One day, Rav Elyashiv calls him to come see him. And he says to him, I want you to become the mayor of Yerushalayim. He says, but Kvod Harav, I'm busy with my work. I don't want to go into politics. It's ugly. Rav Elyashiv says, listen, a chazan, if he's asked to be a chazan, he can say no the first time and the second time. But if he's asked the third time, he must say yes. So imagine you are a chazan, and this is my third request. Go become mayor. Because we need somebody to lead with a Haredi mindset. And I will bless you and your wife. Of course, Rav Elyashiv barely saw people, needless to say, barely saw women, but he insisted on Rav Lopiansky bringing his wife, and he would give both of them a blessing for doing this, because he knew how big the undertaking was. Once he was elected to be the mayor of Yerushalayim, he went to Rav Shach. He said, Kvod Harav, so what do I do now? He says, the same chesed that you've been doing until now. Only difference is, until now, all the chesed that you did was through your gemach. And people would say thank you. So you'll do the same chesed, only this time people will curse you and insult you. That's what you're doing. You're helping Am Yisrael, but you're not going to get the thank yous. It's the opposite. A person that was looking for kavod, a person that was looking for honor, would not want such a thing. But Rav Lopiansky wanted the honor of a Kadosh Baruch Hu and to help his brothers and sisters. And therefore, his constant inspection of his own heart led him to realize that the will of Hashem is superior to any personal benefit. He became the mayor. He helped countless people as his organization continued to grow. But he would make it an issue to constantly show people that the Torah is superior. One time, there was a rabbi named Rav Baruch Mordechai Mizrahi, who would try to help young religious kids that weren't so religious. Off the derech, you could call it, very weak. And he would arrange trips for them to go to different places. But the goal was, arrange the trip, a bunch of them want to go, they want to go kayaking, they want to go scuba diving, they want to go to all these different things, but the whole point is not for the actual kayaking or the fun, but rather because in this retreat, he brought all of the best rabbis to come do kiruv and help these kids understand the importance of doing tshuva and going to yeshiva. In one of those times, he invited Rav Lopiansky. And of course, the kids were impressed. The mayor is coming. They didn't think the rabbi is coming. They thought the mayor. This is the most powerful person aside from the prime minister. This is it. This is the most powerful politician. He's coming? Wow, we're coming. And just so happened that the Gdol Ador, Rav Steinemann, also came. He came first. Rav Steinemann started speaking. And of course, the kids didn't really care so much about what this old man has to say, because they don't have much respect for the Torah. They don't really see how you could apply it. They're looking forward to seeing the mayor with his security guards and the guns and all of the, the show-off. As Rav Steinman finishes, completes his speech, and he gets up and he leaves. He goes to his car, and the kids are just looking forward to seeing the mayor. But to their surprise, instead of seeing the mayor go on stage, they see the mayor run towards Rav Steinemann's car. And as Rav Steinemann gets into the car and closes the door, this mayor starts dancing in front of the car. Starts dancing. And he's dancing and he's honoring the Torah. And he's jumping. And he's doing all types of things. He's blocking the car from going. He's blocking the car from going and he's dancing. And the kids are seeing what's going on here. And he's dancing and jumping similar to what David HaMelech did. When his wife Michal rebuked him, this is not, you're insulting yourself. You're the king. You're not supposed to act that way. And David HaMelech says, what are you talking about? The exact opposite. The exact opposite, embarrassing myself in honor of a Torah, is the greatest type of embarrassment you can get. And of course, HaKadosh Baruch Hu rewarded him and ended up punishing her. She never had kids. Rav Lopiansky did the same thing in his situation. But the young kids did not know the King David story. All they knew is that one of the most important politicians, most important personalities, most important person they ever saw is dancing in front of the old man's car. And he won't stop. And he's jumping, and he's dancing, and he's making all these strange moves. After it was done, his son asked him, Abba, why? I mean, he wasn't exactly known as a dancer even in his own kids' weddings. Why now? Lopiansky tells his son, these young Jews, they don't have much honor for the Torah. They have honor for politicians. They have honor for army. They have honor for all types of things that are the mindset of the secular people. If we are going to help them, we have to teach them the foundation of our Torah. So when they see that this politician, this mayor, is embarrassing himself in order to honor the Gedol Adol, to honor the Torah, this will be a lesson they will remember for their entire life, much more than they will a speech. And that's exactly what happened. Those young boys realized that the Torah is superior to what they thought. And little by little, those kids did tshuva. How could somebody operate in such a way, do such things as an instinct? There wasn't any time to think. There wasn't any time to plan. Whether it was helping the Georgian Jews, or it's helping the rest of Am Yisrael, or these young Bachurim, how did he do such things? This is because he constantly reminded himself that in order to serve Hashem, he has to be in your heart at all times. He has to be in your heart at all times. And you have to constantly think about, how could I serve my master in this circumstance? Not just in shul, not just at the Bet Midrash, not just on Shabbat, not just on Yom Kippur, not just when people are watching, but at all times. At all times. During his many different meetings, he would have to meet all types of people. The one time that one of his volunteers passed away and he came to the family for the Shiva. And the family was completely secular. So the women over there were completely immodest. But he came, paid his respects. When he left, his son told him, Abba, why do we have to come here? These people have no respect. None of the women were even modest. Avlopiansky says to him, how do you know what they were wearing? He says, what do you mean? We were there. He says, you see, that's the difference. I didn't look at them. So I have no idea what they were wearing. So it didn't bother me. Meaning, when I already went there, I already had Hashem in mind of what do I need to do. I need to go pay respects, to show a Jew that they're important, to show a Jew that we are part of the same family. But at the same token, that doesn't mean that I'm going to become like them. I'm still going to be a servant of Hashem, still protect my eyes and not look at other women. Therefore, I don't even know if they're modest or immodest. Even if she's the most modest woman in the world, doesn't mean you're allowed to look at her. You have to learn how to train your eyes to simply not look. So much so that even if you're looking in somebody's direction, you could literally train your eyes to see nothing while they're open. But this is not possible if you're not emotional about Hashem. If you're not emotional about HaKadosh Baruch Hu and serving Him and looking for opportunities to get closer to Him, it becomes impossible to do the big tasks or the small ones. To look at things from this perspective of Torah becomes impossible because you can only look at it from your own perspective. Because your heart is not connected to Hashem. One Rav said that in this evil decree that we have in Israel right now against the Bachurei Yeshivot, one of the things that is obvious to all is that most of the Bachurim that are being arrested and put in jail are Sephardi boys. And one of the Rabbanim said, do you know why Hashem is letting all the Sephardi kids be the majority of kids that are actually going to jail? For not going to the army, but rather for being loyal to the Torah? Of course, people are waiting for the rabbi to answer. And he says it's because everyone knows that the Sephardis are much more inclined to do kiruv. They're more emotional. the more sensitive. Certainly there are some Ashkenazim that are also extremely great at kiruv and all types of things, but it's much more natural to Sephardim, especially in Israel. And HaKadosh Baruch Hu is worried about his children that are in those prisons. He wants to bring them back before he sends the Mashiach. So what does he send them? He sends them Sephardi boys that already on day one they become the rabbi of the synagogue, the rabbi of the jail. And that's exactly what's happening. When I sent this Bechur a letter to tell him this, the prison refused to give him the letter and said, no, we cannot let him read this letter. What did the letter say? Exactly what I just told you. That HaKadosh Baruch Hu sent him to prison so he could do kiruv in prison. Why don't they want him to read it? Because they already see it with their own eyes. That one Sephardi Bechur after another is turning the jails into a Torah center. Helping people that have committed a crime against the state, committed a crime against Hashem, do tshuva. That's how much HaKadosh Baruch Hu cares. Rabotai Yekarim, for a person to see that kind of perspective from evil decrees can only be possible if they are emotionally connected to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. When a person is disconnected from HaKadosh Baruch Hu, it's not always obvious. You could see them with the shtreimel on, the beard, the kisui rosh, saying Shabbat Shalom, all types of things. When do you see if somebody is connected or not to Hashem? How they perform the mitzvot. How emotional they are about the Torah. How emotional they are about Hashem. How emotional they are about their servitude of Hashem. Are they looking for more ways to connect to Hashem, to serve Hashem? Or are they just looking up to keep face? To stay within the lines of religiosity? They'll show up to shul because they know that if they don't, 5 people will call them and ask them what happened. They'll give tzedakah when everyone else is giving because they don't want anyone to look at them and say, oh, what's going on with you? How come you're not contributing? They'll do things just because everyone else is doing them. But the moment they feel like no one's looking, they could easily become one of the horror stories we keep hearing, where inside the religious communities you see people doing ma'aseh sdom, the acts of Sodom and Gomorrah, literally doing things worse than some secular people do. With the shtreimel on, with the tzitzit, with everything, without a care, without shame. Why? The heart was disconnected from Hashem. All they're waiting for is for an opportunity when no one is watching them. But they forgot that the Yetzer Hara convinced them that Hashem is also not watching. But that's the mistake. Hashem is always watching. And in the end, He will show us a movie of every single thing we've ever done. And we will understand that the duties of the heart were not just numerous and innumerable for everyone else, but also for us. And hopefully, it's not too late. This, Rabotai Yekarim, are some extraordinary stories of how people applied duties of the heart to their life. I think that this is the type of shiur that you could literally listen to 1,000 times and learn 1,000 different lessons from each and every one of these real life stories. Each of every single one of these real life examples. Because just like the Chovot HaLevavot has told us, we already know that the Torah commands it, whether it's the written or the oral Torah. We already know it makes sense. What we need to know is that it applies to us at all times. And if you are not aware of where it applies to, it simply means that you're not paying attention to the fact that your heart is disconnected from Hashem. Because if you were connected properly to Hashem, you'd be emotional about every single one of the mitzvot that you're doing or not doing. And Be'ezrat Hashem, we will learn from these tzaddikim how to try to apply these lessons to our day-to-day life, whether it's when you're conducting business or you're handling things with your family, whether you're at a supermarket or at a synagogue, whether you're in the middle of learning or middle of a business transaction. It doesn't make a difference. Duties of the heart, inspecting your heart, trying to measure what is the best way to serve Hashem in every single opportunity, in every single situation. That's the goal. And I can assure you it's possible because we see it. And the rewards, they're not just endless in Olam Haba. We see them in Olam Hazeh. We see it in this world. We see it, how it applies and how it impacts people here. Had Rabbi Rosenblatt not been so particular about serving Hashem, he would have missed an opportunity to save another Jew's embarrassment, but also missed an opportunity to save his son's life. Had the guy that was printing stickers not cared so much about other people doing mitzvot, he would have simply focused on work and just printed stickers he can make money from. But that would have cost his daughter's life. Had Rav Lupliansky not cared about Klal Yisrael in every single situation, at some point or another, he would have fell for the Satan's trap in every meeting that he had, whether it's with religious people or secular people. Why? There's endless opportunities to fail. But the reason why he succeeded is because he had a Kadosh Baruch Hu in his heart at all times. And Be'ezrat Hashem, we will succeed to do the same thing as well. Thank you very much for learning with me. May Hashem bless each and every single one of you to succeed in your inspection of the heart and applying this to your lives. Anyone that wants to contribute and help or wants to do Tikkun HaBrit can donate on our website, tikkunhabrit.live, or if you want to donate on the regular website, bhtorah.org or bezrathashem.org. In so many words, there's a lot of different ways to help. But like I said, even if you can't help as much as you'd like, but you still want to help Am Yisrael, go to the Kiruv store, get yourself some of these magnets, get some of the books, get some of the USBs, and distribute them in your community. Help people do tshuva. There's nothing greater that you can do for people. Thank you very much, and Bezrat Hashem will learn again later this week.